It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name's Mike Royer.
And this week, Rip, we're mourning the loss of Titans and Doom Patrol Mike.
It was the writing was on the wall, I suppose, but you know what? The little shows that could, right?
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised it lasted this long, but you know, I don't see the numbers. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, they weren't even little shows though. They were like supersized CW shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the supersized CW shows that could.
Yeah, and yeah, it's funny. We'll talk about it later, like before, like what we saw in season 1, what we're seeing in season 4 for these shows, and how different, and these shows have just evolved. But anyway, Shazam, not the app that listens to your music, but the movie drops another trailer full of dragons for us. Or I guess dragon, if you will, and that's not the only dragons we got this week. So
that's true.
We'll talk about some more dragons and trailers. Marvel is giving us an official timeline book this year. And I'm using air quotes when I say official timeline because it's books, right? Like how relevant are they these days? As soon as you print them, they're outdated. So we'll talk about all that stuff and more going on.
Yeah, it seems like this timeline should exist as an ebook that you can like download patches and updates for.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like yeah, like where you like like V1, V2 _final, you know, all those fun little iterations that I know you see in iterations, Mike. I know this is something you see.
Well, and also like, is the timeline just going to be dedicated to like a single like universe? Because like technically in Loki season 1, he like goes back in time to like, you know, a volcano erupting, which, you know, theoretically happens, you know, before the Eternals movie, or I guess in the middle of the Eternals movie, right? So I guess there'll be lots of decisions to make.
And some of those were erased. I think that'll be like an outlier, but like this is something I wish maybe was released yearly or maybe per phase. And we haven't even got to this topic yet, but we'll talk about that later, like how we can work through that. But right now, brace yourselves, folks. The Super Bowl marketing has started. And
yes,
with that,
and I've been avoiding it.
Yeah, with that,
I saw an article the other day that said that the Breaking Bad boys were reuniting for a commercial, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I guarantee I see at least a part of this commercial before the Super Bowl even comes. And lo and behold, I saw a bit of the commercial like just 2 days ago. I'm like, we are not even out of January, and they are showing bits of this commercial already. Like, no, I was so mad. I turned the channel, or I don't know what I was watching it on, but I turned away and I was like, not back in my day, you had to wait for the big game to watch these.
Well, the Super Bowl season seems to be a lot like Christmas, right? It keeps creeping back farther and farther.
Yes.
And I'll tell you that my favorite Super Bowl thing, and you also pointed this out, is M&M's have a new spokesperson. Oh my God. And literally, like the next day, they're like, we have our new spokesperson. She's doing the my and yas, right? M&M's, and you're gonna learn about it at the Super Bowl. And everyone's like, yeah, M&M's is so woke. I'm like, dude, it's just a Super Bowl commercial. Like, come into February, it's over. This is like that baby peanut thing all over again, right?
It's like the baby nut. The writing's on. Yeah. You people, you gotta. It's like you gotta start to work those like April Fools, you know, media day parts of your brain a little bit earlier in January. But the writing's on the wall. This is just a stunt. Those M&Ms are gonna trot right out in front of Maya Rudolph on that commercial. They're gonna have some fun banter. It's gonna cost millions of dollars.
That's right. And then guess what? You're only gonna see regular M&Ms in stores forever. Like you're not gonna change those packages.
M&Ms have no competition. Of course, there's other candy on the shelves, right? But no one else is making like a little bite-sized like chocolate. Like they're just doing whatever. M&Ms tell my theater every time I go to the movies to like, you know, be quiet.
Silence your phone.
Disarm that nuclear warhead.
Yeah. We always, when we were at Disney, they have an M&M store on the at Disney Springs in Florida, and we went there. We were my wife and I were just like, "What M&M do you see yourself as?" Right from the trailer, and I'm like, I feel like I'm the orange one because I like the crispy M&Ms, but also he's just very dramatic, and I'm like, that's kind of I feel like I resonate with this orange M&M a little bit. But Super Bowl's coming out. I know we know Fast X is going to have a trailer. We know The Flash is going to have a trailer. We don't know what Marvel and Disney are going to come out swinging yet, but like by God, we are in the today I guess is the playoffs, right? Now they might be going on. One of them might even have been decided at this point. So if you're listening to this on Monday, you know which two teams are in here, and you know in 2 weeks you'll be listening to our show about this. And I'm very excited to watch the trailers. We're hosting this year. Mike, you've seen.
What?
I got my new arcade in right this week, right? My tabletop arcade. And what I'm going to do is set up NFL Blitz for 4 players. So whoever's here can play NFL Blitz, the arcade version, with the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl.
Perfect. That's exactly. Well, if you want to update on what the teams may or not be, I don't know why anyone needs this information at the top of our podcast, but at the end of the third quarter, 49ers 7, Eagles 28. So it looks like the Eagles probably going to be going to the Super Bowl. And then the Bengals and the Chiefs, they probably kick off as soon as we're done recording this podcast. So we'll see it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I will forget both and all 4 of these teams. I will not remember by next week. I'm like, I don't know. I
had to look up where the Bengals were from. Cincinnati.
I know that because they're 2 hours away. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they're not too far from Louisville, right? They're not too far from you.
Yeah, Kansas City's a lot farther than it looks, but they've been there every year for a couple of years, right? So I think that repetition. Bengals, I'm not as familiar with, but yeah. Anyway, we're about the Super Bowl food. We're about the commercials. And all the,
I've been
all the
seeing
marketing.
some good.
Yeah.
I've been seeing some good snacks on TikTok. I've bookmarked a couple little treats there, so I'm looking forward to that.
I picked up some Buffalo and Blue kettle chips this weekend, Mike. I was going to give those a try because everyone likes a good buffalo dip, right? Especially for parties and gatherings. So I was like, I'll try these chips. I've not opened them yet because instead I went and I showed you. You've had these before and didn't know it. You're holding out on me. Doritos has barbecue flavored Doritos now. In a black bag. I thought it was like one of those super hot, because like the darker the bag gets, right, the hotter you imagine it's gonna be, kind of like Taco Bell sauce packets. Like by the time you get to black, you're like, I don't know about this. I just want to eat my food in peace. But the Doritos barbecue pretty solid all around. So highly recommend that if you want to try those for your upcoming events and parties. So send us your snack recommendations. Other than that, Mike, like I said, I have been literally disassembling one arcade to sell my full-size arcade, putting together my little one, which you saw the photos of, my Infinity Arcade, which is all the Infinity Stones, all the colors you could ever imagine in one go. So I'm going to post some of that.
You seem to be a man on a mission to create the most perfect in-home arcade experience. I swear, like, you started this journey with like one like homebrew like type of emulated arcade that was like roughly like, you know, stapled to a piece of like particle board. Then I swear 2 weeks later you got 8 arcade machines in your basement and you're hawking them and selling them and flipping them and making money off of them, and now you've like graduated to this gigantic singular machine that like you this is truly mirroring like Thanos' quest for all of the gems. So like now it's just going to be like that thing, like was it worth it? What did you have to sacrifice? And I think it's going to be, and it's going to be your back of trying to get this thing in and out of your basement at some point in time in your life, unless you just die with it down there.
So I applaud my wife. She helped me get the other one up the stairs this week, the big one, right, the full size, the 6 foot one. She mostly just helped guide it up the stairs while I was lifting it with my back the whole way. I've noticed my wrist was hurting this week, and I'm like, what did I do? Oh yeah, I lifted up a 300-pound arcade machine up the stairs, and then had to help the dude who bought it load it into his truck. And he immediately broke it. So don't carry these in trucks, people. Put them in trailers. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Yeah, my I've done so much of getting the external features of the arcade. I've not got to enjoy the internals of the actual playing the game part. So that's
I was
the
like,
goal.
do you ever play any of these games? It's like this goal of getting thousands of games into one machine. It's just like, I'll get around to playing them one day.
Yeah, but it's fun. It looks cool as hell. I'm very thrilled with it. It's very well built. So my goal is to have most of it done this week, so I can play, or in 2 weeks, so I can do NFL Blitz with people. But other than that, I've not had a chance to really watch anything. We've had on and off cold fronts here, a little bit of snow, a little bit not snow, Mike. But you I think we talked about it a little bit last week. You started watching this first movie, right? You were watching in pieces. Then you got to watch the sequel, and I believe my response said it best. It was like, no. But go on and tell us.
I've had movie whiplash this week, like hardcore, right? So I finally got around to watching American Psycho for the very first time, which was an interesting experience because I kind of knew what I was getting into, right? Because the first half of this movie is like memed out of control, and it makes total sense why. It's such a bizarre film because Christian Bale is playing such a specific character with just a fascinating performance, right? Like, you could take or leave the ending. They leave it like a little ambiguous. It's a little like, it's a little brain wrinkling at times, but his performance is so captivating. It's so weird. It's almost like I really want to know the decisions that went into it, because I hardly ever care about like, inside the actor studio type of deal, right? But I actually do really want to know what got into Christian Bale's head when he portrayed this character of Patrick Bateman, because it's so wild, right? It's so weird. There's 1,000 memes. I became a meme myself, Chris. I became the Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah. I was pointing at everything, and I was like, hey, I know where that's from. I've seen that. But it was a nice surprise just getting to the second half of the film. It's a little less memed. So I was like, oh, where's this going? This is so weird. How is this going to resolve? So American Psycho, easy to recommend. I thought it was going to be more brutally violent, but I would say they make the right director choice of kind of moving the camera away before things get too graphic. So it's not so much about the slasher gore element. It's just about how, Patrick Bateman's just literally crazy. So that was American Psycho 1, which I streamed. And you notice how I said American Psycho 1? Because when you finish streaming this on HBO Max, you are prompted and suggested to watch American Psycho 2, All American Girl, starring Mila Kunis. I didn't even know this movie existed. Yeah. What's going on here? This is so strange. I was like, I have to watch it. What is going on here? I've never even heard about this. How can like one movie be so iconic, but I've never even heard about the sequel, right? So I put it on, and whew, boy, I think I can confidently say this might be one of the worst movies ever made, almost on every category. And I can definitively say, no one can argue with me, this is the worst sequel ever put to film on planet Earth. Like, nothing is as bad as this. It's so weird. I looked into it a little bit. There's not a whole lot that I could find just from like the IMDb page, but this originally was supposed to be I think a pretty standard, straightforward kind of thriller movie. And then the studio decided to bolt on the American Psycho franchise to it. So they kind of had to shoehorn this like plot into it to connect it to Patrick Bateman from the first movie. The author, because through this research, I figured out American Psycho was based on a book, right?
Yes. Yep.
The author vehemently denies this movie's existence, so it's not connected to his character or his books at all, or her. I don't know exactly who wrote it, but it is just it's so bad. You have to watch it. You can see that they're trying to do something similar with like Mila Kunis, like, oh, can we make her a little weird, a little out of pocket, a little unfitting for this movie, and just everything, Chris. And it sounds like you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're saying, oh no.
Well, this is one of the few movies that holds a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, right? So
yes.
So I believe this came out early 2000s as well. Like maybe like height of maybe that 70s show, Mila Kunis, right?
Yeah.
When I was in bad films, outside of class, we try to track down some really, really bad movies. So you're right. This is a classic example of a movie was filmed. It was not called American Psycho 2. None of the actors in it knew it was American Psycho 2. They were working on a different project. It was re-edited into American Psycho 2. So it's completely different, not even related, and very wonky, to say the best. Now, did you mention this? William Shatner is also in this? Like,
Oh, yes, he's in it. So they were able to get at least some well-known faces, right? Which technically they are actors that can act. That's undeniable, right?
Absolutely.
But everything around them is failing just so utterly catastrophically. It's just so, it's almost fascinating, right? I feel like I would recommend it just so you can see what makes a good version of a movie and what makes an awful version of a movie. I almost couldn't finish it, but I forced it and I pushed through, and wow, what a nightmare. Like, it is so weird. Like, it almost felt like if they just pushed it one more notch in that direction, it could have been like a sequel to the Scary Movie franchise. It was so bizarrely quirky. Like, oh, just throw in a couple of jokes and you just got a comedy on your hand. It's so weird. So to complete this whiplash, I watched probably one of the best movies I've seen in my entire life. Rewatched it, of course, was Forrest Gump. What a shoe turn, right?
It's so good that Weird Al even has a parody song. That when Weird Al parodies your movie with a song, that's how you know you've made it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring it up because it's been so long since I've watched it. It's streaming on Netflix, but when I was watching it, I think I made a realization that this may be the very first kind of like dramatic story I was ever exposed to as a child. Because the film came out, I think, when I was around like 7 or 8 years old, so I obviously did not go to the theaters to watch Forrest Gump when I was that age, so I probably caught it when I was maybe around like 9 or 10, and like the experience that you have with this kind of movie when you're like 10, and then later in life when you watch it as like a teenager, and then when you watch it again in your mid-30s, it's just a totally different experience every time you watch it. And if you grew up in the 90s with kind of serialized cable television, this is the perfect type of movie, right, to just replay over and over and over again, like Weekend on like TNT or TBS, right? Because it kind of has that Christmas Story kind of vibe to it, where there's just like little sections that you catch throughout the day, right? You go out and mow the lawn, you come back in, Forrest is like playing college football. Yeah, you go do something else, you come back in, Forrest is trying to nurse Jenny back to health. There's all these different like little facets to the movie, but yeah, it's just wild. I feel like I'm gonna have to watch this movie like every decade of my life now just to kind of see how it's affecting me. But man, it is. I feel like it's a true cinematic experience. Like, it hits like every single thing a movie needs to hit. It's the polar opposite of American Psycho 2. That's the best way. And it's also technically an adapted screenplay. Well, American Psycho 2 is not an adapted screenplay, but the first American Psycho is. So if you're adapting source material, you do it the Forrest Gump way, not the American Psycho 2-ish way.
Well, 2 didn't. 2 was, I just looked it up. It was called a movie called The Girl Who Couldn't Die was the name of the original movie they filmed. And then
what a bad movie title.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then you get what you pay for, apparently. But Forrest Gump, I always associate Forrest Gump with Titanic because they are very long movies, right? Like, these aren't short films by any means. Mm-hmm. And like when they put them on TV, that could take half your day watching these movies on TV with commercial breaks and everything. So you're like,
oh yeah.
So you, like you mentioned, like, you're like, oh, I'm watching a movie at home. Are you on TV? Like, didn't have the VHS of these movies. You were really watching with the commercials. So there's 6 hours of your day right there. So I always associate those two. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Good stuff from the mid '90s, right out of there. So. Let's jump into some news. Movies that are very long as well. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? Very, very long movie. I think it's 2 hours, 2:45, 2:30, 2:45. It's landing on Disney Plus on February 1st, which I believe is Wednesday, right? I'm going to pull up my calendar here while we're here. Yeah, Wednesday, February 1st, and that includes the IMAX Enhanced Edition. I always want to tell people to remember those because those are part of your Disney Plus collection. When you select the movie, you go over to versions, select IMAX, and boom, you're seeing just the more full frames when they use it.
Technically, if you think about it, you're pulling down more bits, you're using more server bandwidth from Disney, so you're getting more money, you're getting more bang for your buck, right? You're costing them more money if you stream the IMAX version, so there you go.
And for those with the newer sound bars and home sound systems are starting to add Atmos or DTS in it, like HD. I believe the IMAX versions will start to have DTS HD audio mixes, so you're going to get a higher bitrate on your audio as well. so it'll sound better. But I'm excited to revisit this. Like I said, I watched it in theaters when it came out. But I'm excited to kind of revisit, like we said, on our own terms, right? Kind of go back and do the Easter eggs and kind of watch a little bit here and see the, everything kind of going on. Very, very excited. So check that out on Disney Plus this Wednesday. Also in the MCU, we were talking about this at the top of the show. Now's our time to get into it. Marvel is releasing an official MCU Timeline book in September, and I need to pull up the link. I'll pull up the link here. So this is a published book, right? And this is where I'm kind of getting like my head kind of out of whack here, because why would you print a book at the start, right? You're gonna have 3 movies and like 2 shows of Phase 5, and now you're printing a timeline book, right? And then which will immediately be outdated the second it arrives, because you're going to want the next version right away, and, and who knows how long till we're going to do that. So to me, this is an interesting project. We've always wanted one, but like you mentioned, like does it like, I'm looking at the cover, right? The cover includes all the movies up through Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange and Captain America or Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier stuff, right? Like, this is a lot of Phase 4, so I'm very confused as to why they didn't just like, hey, here's the Infinity Saga timeline book, and and then,
yeah, that makes more sense to me, to like wrap it around something a little bit more seminal, in a way of like, if you're gonna give me a timeline book, wrap it around something complete and definitive, because outside of that, I feel like I'm one of those people that I don't really care about the timeline, only because we've kind of learned by now at this point in time that they do think forward into the future, and they are kind of like putting these puzzle pieces and putting these chess moves in play, beforehand, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they are just kind of like shooting from the hip sometimes when they have to, right? Hey, let's fudge or tweak the timeline because it would make this next project a little bit more interesting, or let's move this around because, well, now we have to because this character needs to be here and there. So like, the pieces are ever moving. So for me, I can't commit to a timeline in good faith.
And the timelines are also like movies, like right in the case of Black Widow, it was a prequel or a sequel to Civil War, but it came out in the first movie of Phase 4, right? Like, like that technically would fall back into this, so they'd have to redo it, and Eternals spanned 8,000 years at least. So this is very interesting to print something, just like, yeah, I get it. Collectors are going to want this. It's got a forward by Mr. Feige himself, right? He's written this forward, but I really wish it was more digestible and like in phases, right? Like, here's this phase, and here's a pull out spread of all the timeline, and here's our updates we made this phase, right? And this is why we did those things, and kind of break that down a little bit and add some more Easter eggs. I'm a really big fan, it's Mike, of the art of the movie books, right? That have a lot of like the concept art, the finished art. Those are really, really cool. Those are really good conversation pieces, or I guess coffee table books. But like, I like having those because that doesn't change. The concept art doesn't change once the movie's released and like produced. This is just a, like you said, like kind of an ebb and flow thing. So I would pay probably to have maybe it was like a subscription service, maybe like every year I get a new book, right? Like of the MCU timeline. Like, hey, here's the shows and movies released this year, even. Because what they used to do with like Encyclopedia Britannicas, like you get the updated versions every couple of years. So, is there a good way to do this? I guess is my question for like, we're trying to figure this out, but like, what would you do in this situation?
Exactly. I don't know. This kind of just seems like a project from like the publishing arm that's just like, hey, we need a new project that'll make some money. Let's make an MCU timeline. Yeah. All right, can we get Feige to write a forward? Yeah, he's fine with it. All right, let's print it.
print it. Yeah. What about the next version? We'll just we'll release a. Remember in college when they used to have like the 2020, 2006 edition, but you couldn't use it. You couldn't buy it because there was like 2 pages changed from the 2007 edition. This is what that feels like down the road. But I think if anyone out there has any ideas, let us know, because I would like to wrap my head around this. I think I'm going to probably get if I'm going to be completely honest, someone will probably get this, buy this, scan it, I'll just download it and skim through it, right? Read it. And then be like, okay, is this worth I want to look at it before I purchase it to make sure it's worth the money, right? Like, hey, maybe they thought about this before they did it, and we just don't know yet. So, we'll figure it out. We'll come back to that. Loki season 3. You mentioned at the top show, Loki would be the only show like that could have its own book for timelines, right? Like the multiverse timelines, and maybe even more as we kind of move forward into the multiverse saga. But season 2 for Loki, it's filming. It's possibly supposed to be coming out this year, but it may see Jonathan Majors play, He Who Remains, Kang, play even more variants of himself in this show that he originally made his debut on, which I think would be really cool, right? To see more of these Kang variants that we've been promised were out there trying to take over all of the timelines along the way.
Yeah, I mean, we left off on a cliffhanger of a version of Kang enshrined in a gigantic statue, so it would make sense to see him again. I just want more Jonathan Majors all the time. He's so cool.
yeah, absolutely. And then he's got Creed 3 coming out this year as well. And then there's like another movie with the guy who plays from the new Top Gun. He's essentially the new Iceman in the new Top Gun movie about pilots. So he's everything. It's the year of Jonathan Majors for sure. But he's supposed to also, one of these variants is called rumored to be a variant called Victor Timely. And this Kang version lost in the future, went back to 1900 and founded a town I think called like Timely, Missouri or something like that, and started building things and putting things in place for like a long-term game to take over the future later. So he was like, I guess kind of like Back to the Future 3, right? Where Doc starts sending stuff from the Wild West so Marty can find it later.
Playing the long game.
Yeah, so I think that'd be pretty cool to see him play. Maybe not someone super powered, but someone who's maybe more of a techie, like a Tony Stark inventor dude who's playing the long game with his inventions rather than just straight up, his blue suit. But yeah, I'm excited. We'll keep you guys posted if you get anything on that. Also, the Marvels movie, our third Marvel movie this year, we'll see the return of Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Monica Rambeau, who has gone through like 8 different superhero names in the comic books and in the show. And it sounds like from all the promotional materials leaking, I think mostly action figures, is that her superhero name will be Photon. They will settle on Photon, and the other one was Spectrum, was a name that they used before because she can see spectrums of light or move through them. But so Photon looks like the one they're going to use for her name.
So it's been obviously forever since I've seen Captain Marvel.
Yes.
But in the movie, do they ever call her Captain Marvel? I'm just trying to remember like who gave her name, because if I remember right, Miss Marvel calls her Captain Marvel, right?
Yep.
When she's like fangirling out about her in the show. So I'm trying to remember the moment where she was given the name, right? Because when you see like, oh, her Monica Rambeau's name is going to be Photon, it's like, well, who gives her the name, right? Is it just like Nick Fury like throwing out code names one day?
Yeah, and Nick Fury is in that, from the leaked audio from San Diego. So Nick Fury's in it. It could be her name. What from WandaVision? What was the unit she was a part of there? Was it Sword? Kind of like a sword base kind of thing. So it could be that. Absolutely. I don't remember how she got her name, because remember she her army tag fell off, so she had a different name for most of the movie. So I don't know why she's Captain Marvel, but like I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Fury was doing that as well.
That's always the trick, right? How do you give them their comic book names? Because it's the goofiest thing in the somewhat grounded superhero world, right? It's like, how do we give them a name? That's why Cisco in the Flash CW show was the best, because he was just a nerd throwing out names for everybody. You just had to write him one line, and that's how you could give somebody a name.
Yeah. So yeah, but honestly, they could call her whatever the fuck they want to call her. They could call her Spectre. It doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't affect anything at the end of the day in the movie. But it seems like all the back and forth. We haven't seen. Have we seen her since WandaVision? I don't think so, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to revisit that character in the movie form coming up. This I think it's July. I think it's June or July, one of the two. Thunderbolts. Oh, anytime I get to write Sentry in the notes, I'm going to be doing this, Mike. And thank you, Mike, for putting Sentry in our thumbnail. So huge kudos to you. But this is one of the producers. They say they're viewing it, though it's not officially been called this, a sequel to the Black Widow movie, and I think we discussed this before. Literally, the lineup is most of these Black Widow and Falcon and Winter Soldier team, right? So I'm really not surprised with that. Are you at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like if you got to think terrestrially in the MCU right now, Black Widow and these Thunderbolt characters are the most terrestrial in a way, WandaVision, Doctor Strange, they were kind of like traversing these different like planes of existence, right, in the movie. Spider-Man was even like dealing with these odd-worldly things. It seems like these are the most grounded characters at this point in time. So yeah, it makes sense that you kind of keep that thread going.
Yeah, and looking at this, I think the only person with powers that are not related to Super Soldier Serum or an enhanced Taskmaster suit is literally Ghost, right? She's the one who got powers from quantum energy. But getting to revisit Yelena and Red Guardian, Bucky, John Walker, I think like you mentioned, very much just regular like super soldier powered brawlers, but like they're not really like you said flying around. They're not doing magic. They're not doing blasts of stuff. So totally fits in that Black Widow vibe that they kind of set in that movie. Also, the notes are that the Sentry is seen as quote unquote the physical villain of this, like, right? So you need someone who can punch, who you're going to be punching and doing all the action scenes with. So it'll be the Sentry for that, Robert Reynolds, and then it could be, or not could be, I guarantee you someone else is pulling the strings, right? And most of the people who saw it, they were like, oh, it's got to be Val, right? After her turn in Black Panther 2, is this a play creating people who can possibly get into Wakanda and take the vibranium? Like, is this an American Black Panther powered person with their super soldier serum? I don't know. Would that be
could be possible?
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if it is Val at the end of the day. But
I mean, I'm looking forward to, at least it seems to be, when it comes to MCU canon, it seems that the films kind of at least are taking priority of kind of laying down some of the real big things, right? This is where the big moves happen in the MCU, where, some big things can happen in the TV shows for sure, but they're kind of supposed to be a little bit, smaller scale. So I'm hoping if the Thunderbolts are going to be dealing with the superpowered existence of, the Sentry, and also a lot of these characters are associated with superhero serum. I want to see that tackled a little bit more directly. I just do not like how the serum was treated in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Whether or not
it wasn't there. Let's be honest, it was not even in that show.
Yeah, whether or not you liked the story or not, or the characters or how they were portrayed, like the serum became very trivialized to me. Right? It just kind of seems like, it's just out there. Some people can get it. I know we went through an entire, Captain America story and film where we demonstrated just how difficult and hard this stuff was to get. And even in Captain America Civil War, the whole film has the twist towards the end where we see them destroy kind of like the last living vestiges of the superhero serum, because why would we want that out in the world, right? Yeah. So then all of a sudden, now it's just flowing. It's out there in the world. Right. Somebody made some. It's just there. So good luck dealing with that. There just needs to be more care taken into the fact that now anyone on Earth can be superpowered. Mm-hmm. So I just hope they handle that a little bit more tactfully, which leans into how are we explaining the Sentry's superpowers in a more of a grounded world, right?
As you know me, Mike, I'm one of the biggest fans of the Sentry. I already know this is not going to be the comic book version by a long shot, right? Like this, there's he's probably not going to fly. He's probably, if he has energy manipulation, it might be, if we're lucky, or maybe they borrow some of Ghost's abilities. Like, could they pool the Thunderbolts abilities to create the Sentry, right? But I really don't think we're going to get the comic book Sentry in this version. We're not going to get a Homelander level character kind of thing, right? Or because that's kind of what they're all based on Superman. But the Sentry, he originally got his powers by drinking someone trying to recreate a super soldier serum. Not take the MCU out of this. This is in the comic books, and so could they be again tinkering with it even more. We know the entire Incredible Hulk movie is based on the the Abomination having the super soldier serum mixed with whatever Blonsky did, not Blonsky, the leader, whatever he did. So I think if it comes down to the serum thing again, right? Like you said, it needs to be limited, not openly available, but they need to mess with it enough to create someone too powerful and too mentally unstable to handle it. And John Walker is a poor representation of someone who, was too strong and too mentally unstable, because that show just didn't do that character any justice, right, at the end of it. So I'm already bracing myself for like, hey, this is going to be more, like you mentioned, grounded, less out there, less Superman-y, and probably more I don't know, like maybe a couple levels above Captain America, like maybe Hulk level, but like that he's able to retain a human form, and that's really about it.
The story makes sense. I mean, I feel like this is the easiest story lift out there in the MCU right now, because it's very similar to kind of what they were doing with, was it Iron Man 3? Or no, I'm thinking Ultron, right? Where it's just like you have these external threats to planet Earth. Yeah. You have these superpowered people. So now these governmental countries and institutions need to make their own weapon. It's a tale as old as time. And it's a tale they tried to kind of convey in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. They just kind of didn't get it off the ground running. Yeah. So this is a second try. I would say the stakes are going to be higher, right? Because I think they're going to have to treat the Sentry with a little bit more power and respect when it comes to that, where I would imagine the Sentry should be able to go toe-to-toe with Thor or a Captain Marvel or a Hulk, right? You kind of need something that the military has under their hands, and who knows? I don't expect the Sentry to be a straight up good guy by the end of the movie, but maybe he'll just his character arc and thread will kind of filter maybe through a couple different movies. And then maybe by the time we get to Secret Wars, he's kind of on the right side of justice or whatever, Yeah.
And the Sentry, again, he has the villain, the Void side, right? So I 100% guarantee you, we're going to see an evolution of the Sentry is probably the America's watchdog, their new, golden guardian of good, I think is what they call themselves and thing. But he's got that evil side, and it could even be, maybe someone's controlling him and making him be like a lapdog. Like, hey, I need to go handle some threats under the radar. You're coming with me because you're my muscle, right? You're my enforcer who's behind me. And if you don't come with me, I think in the comic books they threaten to kill his wife, right? Or hey, we'll bring your wife back to life if you come with us. And essentially Norman Osborn kept him, at his hip as a watchdog, but a guard dog, if you will. That everyone else was all the other villains were afraid of because of his power level. But I want him to be very, very strong. But I think if we go straight comic book Sentry, it's gonna break, like you mentioned, the foundations of the MCU we've got going already built. How do you explain he can fly? How do you explain, how does a super soldier serum give someone the ability to fly and shoot beams out of his eyes and, hear everything around the world? So I think we're gonna, I'm already, I guess, getting my expectations ready to be it has to fit in a Thunderbolts world where these people who are strong but not the strongest have to take him on, and how do they do it? How do they do it tactfully? Where they probably, I don't think they'll kill him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is incapacitated at some point by the end of the film. So yeah, I mean, I think we're both agreed on that. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's a lot of Sentry conversation. I love him. If you guys get a chance, pick up Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the Sentry, or digitally, fantastic reads. Love it. One of my final college films was based on the Sentry. It was a good time. Let's go. I already put Black Panther here twice. I forgot to do this. Angela Bassett has received an Academy Award nomination for Best Leading Actress, making this the first MCU leading main actor nomination that wasn't VFX or sound or whatever ever. So that's good, right? That's a step in the right direction. It's.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're gonna pick up the win. The competition at the Oscars this year is stiff. People are saying that this could be potentially a good year for the television program, because you got a lot of more box office friendly things nominated in higher categories like Avatar and Top Gun Maverick. So Yeah, it's always good when you kind of see, an MCU movie like sneak something a little bit more high level in there. But I have no intentions of ever seeing an MCU movie like winning a big goal.
I think it's even making supporting actress. Yeah, even making it into best supporting actress is pretty good. I'm gonna lean away from you and say I disagree. I think a lot of these best picture movies are not box office friendly. There are like four of them. Looking at these, four of them my wife knew, and she tries to stay pretty up to date, right? Like, as a I guess a regular person who goes to the movies and walks through, So we watched Avatar, we watched Elvis, and I didn't watch Elvis. She watched Elvis. We watched Top Gun Maverick and Everything Everywhere All at Once. The other ones she had to look up.
Hey, there's sometimes the Oscar years I'm like, I've seen one of these movies.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, we're like doubling it or tripling up, but that's still that's still a lot more than previous.
Yeah. So there's just interesting that some of these are out here. So I mean, I'm excited to kind of see who gets smacked on TV this year, right? We need some drama. No, I'm kidding. They'll probably play this pretty short, but there's I just want to kind of see how this plays out this year. I always lose less and less interest the closer we get, but such as award season at the end of the day. First of two movies that we watched trailers for that had dragons. Shazam! Fury of the Gods trailer number 2 dropped out of nowhere this week. A couple notes here, like this seems to be the trailer. I wouldn't say it gives a story, but it definitely portrays a better picture of the film, right? With the Daughters of Atlas going after the Shazamily and like taking away their powers seem to be a big thing in this trailer, right? There's a big dragon. Looks like he's made out of wood.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like I watched this trailer and I was like, I don't feel like I got any new like real information, right? I feel like it was almost the same trailer, but they just took like alternate shots maybe of what they were doing in the first trailer. Like, oh, let's just pick this different angle of this shot.
Well, I would say this is less funny than the first one's like leans into that humor, right? Like a lot, like because it has it very much plays off that Eminem song in the background. This seems to be like, hey, there's at least a little bit of stakes. Of course, obviously the movies have stakes, but it seems to be a little bit more like, hey, I don't think they're going to kill anybody, but like, hey, we're taking away your Shazam powers right in front of you. Like the kids are like, hey, one of them's falling out of the sky in that. But like, I really, you said, it's Shazam. They're not going to kill anybody, right, at the end of this.
Yeah, obviously, I don't blame the movie, but to me, this trailer was just like, I thought maybe there was going to be like a stinger at the end, a reveal, a tease, something. But I was like, oh, this is pretty much the same as what we got the first time around. So I'll keep waiting for some sort of new little nugget to drop. But not a whole lot going on in this one for me.
I'm gonna straight disagree and think this is the better one. Like showing the unicorns, the dragons. At least again, there's something going on here. Like, he's fighting these ladies. There seems to be a lot more, again, monsters going on. But, it's still at the end of the day, it's Shazam. This isn't, the comic book Shazam. This is very much kids with powers, right, at the end of the day. And they really leaned to that Shazam family early on in that first movie. So we already had that. We don't have to build up to it. So I'm going to watch this. I don't think, there's nothing good with it. But I don't know, there's... we're coming up on like the final days of the month here, James Gunn. We have 2 more left after this.
That's right. We're still waiting for his announcement.
Yes. So is Shazam in the future of the DCU, or like is he literally him and Peter Safran? I don't want to give it all to James Gunn. Is James Gunn and Peter Safran literally nuking everything that exists after 2020? 3, right? That's all we know about our 2023 movies, and once those are gone, what's left? So is Shazam in the cards down the road for a third movie, if you will? So I don't think it's going to be. I really don't, man. I don't think it fits in to everything else, but we can see.
Who knows? We'll find out.
Things that James Gunn and Peter Safran didn't do is cancel Titans after season 4. Apparently, this all preceded the new DC Studios leads But I think the show, and we'll talk about the other one, was given enough. I think they were given enough time to write the ending for the show. It wasn't done, and then they ended it. So I think that the people knew going into the season it would be the last.
Yeah, I think it's funny the way just how Safran and Gunn now have to like just kind of navigate the news cycle, right? Because they, like you said, they say like, oh, it wasn't us. This decision was already made before we got here. But, if they really, really wanted it, they could, like, they're in charge now. They can keep it around. Like, they're the bosses. So I do think it's kind of funny that it's like, oh, sorry, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. But I totally understand it, right? They ran a good number of seasons, right, for what they were. It's not like they were necessarily designed to crank out as many episodes as, like, a CW show or run as many seasons. I mean, even a show like Peacemaker, which I think is very good and very premium for the most part. Hopefully season 2 elevates a little bit more. I don't think that's going to get more than like 5 seasons, right? That almost seems like it's overstaying its welcome, almost like too much going on there. Yeah. So yeah, I think they had a good run. They weathered a storm, right? Wow. They started on a different, unique kind of boutique streaming service, survived the merger to HBO Max, and then survived some deep cancellation and cuts like a year or so ago. They fought through a pandemic, so there are these shows that could I congratulate them for their perseverance.
And this would be I'm looking at Titans. So Titans started in 2018, so we're on its 5th year. Has 43 episodes total when it's all said and done, which, good for it.
Good job.
I mean, 43 hour-long episodes, right? Like, these aren't your 20-minute shows. But I will tell you, looking, I saw a picture of, like, Titans in the 1st season versus Titans in the 4th season. They really let them come into their own finally, right? Like, they were like, hey, we're going to play it safe. We want to be as realistic as possible. And they're like, you know what? Let's lean into this, DC universe, if you will, for Titans. I think, Beast Boy got his, regular suit. What's his name? The chick Raven gets she becomes White Raven finally. Robin gets a Nightwing suit. He's not just Robin anymore. And Starfire leaned out of the, I guess human, like, she's an alien. They give her some alien looks to that. So, I think it's pretty cool. They really ran the game. I'm looking up here. We got Red Hood, we got Wonder Girl, they had Hawk and Dove, Deathstroke, Superboy. They really. I know Superman was in this. They really pulled a lot of like Batman and Titans heroes or villains and heroes into this, right? Somehow. So, good for them. It looks like the back half of season 4 is still to be announced, but for Titans. Now that does lead into the other part of this is Doom Patrol, right? The other show that has lived alongside this the whole time. A little quirkier, right? More like I guess a misfit, a gang of misfits. It's not Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm trying to think of. It's not Suicide Squad either. I guess maybe more like Umbrella Academy, right? A little bit. Right? Some weird people with like an older guy kind of instructing them who's not perfect either. Has also been given the axe after season 4. And this was also done before James Gunn and Peter Safran, but they also were given enough time to write the series finale for this as well. I'm trying to go back and look at like the notes of like when these things were announced. Like, I guess season 4 these were announced at DC Fandom 2021. So we're now,
Fandom. What a different era,
right?
That we've surpassed. Yeah, the writing is on the wall here, folks. Right, the CW kind of era of these shows is over. And the Flash is ending. There's a couple like outliers. Like, I know Superman and like Lois is out there, but that probably won't be holding on for too much.
Well, that show's not made to last either, right? That's a show. I think to me, this comes back to one thing we've talked about before. The era of Greg Berlanti's superhero, shows and him touching everything is wrapping up, right? He is winding down his I wouldn't say grasp, but like his productions on superhero shows as it transitions to an official DC Studios model along the way.
Wow. The first episode of Arrow season 1 aired in October 2012. So this whole thing, this Berlanti verse, depending on how long Superman and Lois goes for, it's spanning well over a decade, right? So I mean, that's impressive. All that content that they made in that decade is defining for a superhero genre. So I would say this is kind of like one of those New Orleans funerals, right? Those are the funerals you go to and celebrate the life that they had, not the fact that they're gone.
Yeah.
So that's how I'll look back on this kind of like CW era.
And it's I would say a rise and fall, right? Really, I mean, remember in like, was it when we started the show, 2015. We were talking about CW shows left and right. Every week was a new one getting announced or rumored. While that's, I don't blame anybody involved. Like you said, this no one's fault. It's just, there's only diminishing returns. You can only do so many ideas.
It's just like your grandparents. Sometimes they get sick, right?
Yeah.
I should probably stop comparing this to a human being.
That is really weird. I
don't want to bring back traumatic memories for anybody out there, but we'll play you off with some New Orleans jazz music.
Yes. So exactly. Insert jazz music here, if you will. Let's move on to again. I really haven't given you hell for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in a long time. That used to be a running gag on the show. The upcoming Seth Rogen project has been retitled, the animated movie, to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. And they are leaning into that gooey, what was it? It's not Garbage Pail Kids font for Mutant Mayhem, right? Like it's like 90s
the ooze, man.
Oozy stuff.
Oozing all over it. I don't know what this link is here. Is this just like someone's business card that works on the movie, or what is this?
This was the artwork that I think was where it was discovered the title was changing.
This is cool that I don't know if you see on the left-hand side, the first thing I saw was the ice cream pop. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I just love the vibes of this. It seems very punk, very 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, like it just blends perfectly.
I'm always down for TMNT, right? I feel like they're just like a great squad, an awesome gang that I like to see interpreted, every couple of years. I feel like this is a good way to approach, Scooby-Doo. I feel like we've kind of avoided some of the Velma drama, so I won't bring it up. But just these kind of properties and these iconic IPs are going to get remade and retouched and interpreted in different ways. So just go along with the ride, folks. It's not the end of the world if something is made that you don't like, right? I mean, not only are we getting this animated version, isn't there like another live act? There's like another turtle thing in the works, right? For the big screen. I don't remember what it was or who's in charge of it.
I think this is the only one I remember, but I would not be surprised, right? Teenage Mutant Turtles is great because it was in the 80s. It was a black and white comic book, right? Like they didn't have the colors. Then it blew up. We had an animated show. We had our live action movies. They had a dozen more animated movies, a couple more live action movies, and this was literally every artist. Kevin Eastman, right? And I forget the other guy. He pretty much, they
Laird, or isn't it something Laird or something?
Yeah, like maybe Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman and something like that. But they were like, just do whatever you want with the turtles. Like, have fun with it because this is a crazy fucking idea. Like, we have different multiverses for the turtles, right? Different universes. We have aliens. We have this brain in a robot suit, right? And we're teenage, we're mutants, we're ninjas, we're turtles. And there's other mutants. And yeah, like it just kind of goes to show you don't have to be precious about everything that comes out because not everything is perfect and not everything is for that audience at the end of the day.
I'll use this as an opportunity to put a question out there to the world because I was very confused in Target yesterday. I went back into the electronics section, where they kind of put the cool nostalgic toys. That's kind of where they put the Funko Pops back there.
90% of it is horror toys for some reason. But
yeah. They had this weird dual combo toy pack that it was one singular box. Half of the box was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figure. The other half of the box was 11 from Stranger Things. And they kind of did like this like horizontal line across the box. Like I didn't understand what the theming was. Like, why are these two action figures being sold in the same box? Like the 11 was being like turned upside down. So like, you have to turn the box to see like the Stranger Things portion of it the right way. Then you turn it the other way and then you get TMNT. But I was like, why are these two IPs sharing the same box? I don't understand. Like at first I thought, maybe this was like a nostalgia thing of like, the kids played with the turtles, but like Stranger Things is like 80s. Like that was maybe slightly before like TMNT rise and fame.
It was possibly, but that's the whole point of that toy collection was because they were both in the 80s.
Yeah, but like TMNT, like I don't think they've been heavily focused or shown off in Stranger Things. I just didn't understand the combination. Like, who pitched this to a toy executive and said, "Let's put them in the same box"? I mean, it's just weird. I just want to know why they're in the same box.
So there's another one here. You can buy 2 box sets. The ones that confuse me is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Street Fighter in the same box. Like, whoever's got the TMNT license right now, it's just letting them have it. Like, go for it. Like, put whatever you want and anything you want, because by God, we have these turtle toy models. We could get the plastic models out in like a heartbeat and just start reprinting them, because if you look at all those turtle toy models, right, those are the classic ones. Those are not even new updated ones. These are the old ones.
Chris, I had to Google it since you were looking at it too. Like, they have like promo shots of like where the characters they're putting the toys in like the same setting. So it's like Raph with like his size, like right next to Hopper holding like an axe. It's like, what scene are we recreating? Like, they have not crossed over.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the Street Fighter. It's Raphael with it's Michelangelo. It says, even though he's got a red bandana, against Chun-Li. And Leonardo versus Ryu of Street Fighter. Like, whoever's doing it is doing a great job doing these cross promotions, but I have no idea who the hell's buying these.
And the figures are a little different too, because it looks like the Street Fighter ones, they're a different kind of mold and art style,
kind of cell shaded, aren't they? A little bit.
This is weird. They will pimp the Turtles into any franchise out there on the planet.
So I will go ahead and tell you, there's a series, comic book series that was, I think, last year, 2 years ago, called TMNT: The Last Ronin. It deals with there's one turtle of the 4 original left. The other 3 have been killed, and you don't know who it is, right? Because he wears an indiscriminate band, and he's fighting the Foot Clan and maybe Shredder or somebody else. So it's like a very it's like the last hero, like the turtle, right? He's gonna do whatever he can to avenge his brothers and take down the Foot Clan. It's really, I wouldn't say dark, but it's really emotional.
It does remind me now that they did pair up the Turtles with Batman in that comic book run for a little bit too.
Yep, absolutely. And they were in Mortal Kombat as characters as well. You can get them as DLC in a Mortal Kombat game. But there's a sequel to that Last Ronin, again, where there are 4 new. They're not the children of the Turtles, but they're 4 different Turtles who've been powered and are now training to fight in this post Turtles world. And that's literally coming out and was announced this week. Like, Turtles is it just resonates with every different people at different eras, right? And this is wild. The movie, the Nickelodeon TV show, what was that called? The Rise,
the newer one, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, so that had a movie. Was it last year? Finally, it had a movie after 2 seasons, and I still can't even find season 2 to download online. So, but like, this is crazy. This is crazy that we're gonna have more and more turtles.
Oh my gosh! I kept scrolling while you were talking.
Yeah,
they put Donatello in a box with Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai.
Yeah, right.
I think this one might be slightly older, like by a year or 2, but this is hilarious. Wow, you can buy it for $49.99 on All Time Toys if you really want Johnny Lawrence. Donatello has like a little white karate robe to go with it. At least he's a black belt. They made Donatello a black belt. At least they gave him that respect. Yeah. Wow. Okay. What a diversion for the podcast. Only leave it up to the Turtles to do that, right?
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of news, so this works out. Also, go back and play TMNT. The Shredder's Revenge, the arcade game, is now, if you have Netflix, it's on their Netflix games on your mobile app, so you can actually play it through your Netflix subscription. And
sick.
The Cowabunga collection is also available. So if you guys look to play some old games. Speaking of video games. Next 2 are actually video game topics. So, good lead in. Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation 5 has a live-action trailer. Someone recorded it on their phone that they're showing, and this appears to be, looks like the first of the marketing for this game to come out this year. And it looks like possibly a Super Bowl ad. Like, the timing is a little peculiar. There's no video game conferences or things coming up. So I assume that they're going to do, like, I imagine Sony would want to sell more PlayStations, and putting a Spider-Man commercial because they don't have a movie at the Super Bowl would be their way to do it.
Yeah. And also, they're kind of finally safe in a way to start to heavily promote the PS5 if they kind of weren't already, because they made that announcement just a couple weeks ago that they're like, the supply chain is fixed. You can now buy a PlayStation 5 when you want. Like, so now I think they're safe to like make these pushes, because you're not going to make these consumers upset that, you know, they're going into like a Target looking for their next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover. Like, oh, there's a PlayStation 5 here on the shelf. So yeah, they're safe to start pushing forward. But yeah, I'm down. I've been eagerly awaiting more web slinging. So this is great news.
Yeah, and having both Spider-Man in one game and knowing that the original trailer has Venom in it is really exciting, right? Like, you know, to get into this finally and go down that road. So 100% excited to see that.
Oh man, I want a section of the game where you get to play as like Venom, right? To do some of the symbiote stuff. Maybe just like one mission, you know, I don't have to necessarily like relearn a whole controller map layout, because that's like a significant thing your brain has to mold to when you play these Spider-Man games. You have to like remeld with the button combos. But like just like one little mission maybe where you get to like do some like oozing goo, that would be fun.
Maybe it's the sneak missions. Maybe they replace the Mary Jane stealth missions with
the goo missions.
With goo sneaking around. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. You know, we don't know how the symbiote's gonna play. The first one has an amazing story, and I love this world to go on. But like, my biggest complaint is I want more villains, like big villains to fight against. Right? There's only like 2 or 3. There's a really good scene from the trailer, right? The prison breakout. I'm like, that was an amazing sequence. So hopefully they have some more in here. But very, very excited to see what they do with this game. Tomb Raider is now been Amazon has partnered with a company to do a lot of Tomb Raider stuff. A lot of Tomb Raider stuff. Including TVs series, or I guess streaming series, movies, and they're going to be publishing the next game with Crystal Dynamics. So the biggest news for this that we'll talk about first before we get into the, I would say controversy, but some weird ass statements made about this, is that I guess actress / writer Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who wrote No Time to Die, is starring in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Is known for her show Fleabag, right? Is writing this TV series for Amazon Prime, which I think that's fantastic news, right? I think she's great. She does action, she does comedy. I think it'll be great for that.
Yeah, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge news is something that I didn't know earlier, so this is great learning it right here now on the show. But I would postulate to people out there, right? You know, now things might be a little different since the franchise has slightly been reinvigorated, right, with a more modern approach to the game, right? But let's take it back. Before that game was made, right, and we just had the kind of classic Lara Croft, like, you know,
the over-sexualized PS1 games.
Yes, exactly. So like, is the audience there for Tomb Raider? I don't know if I'm just like overblowing this, right? But I feel like I don't have deep nostalgia for Tomb Raider. Maybe it's just because I didn't really play the games all that much, but this almost kind of feels a little bit like, I don't know, Paramount Plus making a Halo TV show, right? Like, are you a little late to the game, maybe? Like, is there enough there? Now, like I always say on the show, a good writer, a good creator like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, you can make anything good, right? I'm not saying that they couldn't make this good, but I wonder if this is maybe the best strategic play for Amazon, or maybe it's their only strategic play, right? You know, you have all of these really big, well-known IPs that are already owned by other studios, and Amazon out there is like, we're kind of like this technology e-commerce company. We don't really own any IP. You know, what is left out there on the table, right? I would kind of like to be a fly on the wall there where they're kind of like, you know, making their calculations, right? Like, well, we don't have literally endless amounts of money. We do have lots of money, so we can buy some nice IP, but what is left? What do we want to do? You know, they bought Warhammer, right? Or at least they have the rights to make something with Warhammer. I mean, I don't know if that's widely popular enough, right? You know, my parents don't have any clue what Warhammer is, right? Well, they don't have any clue. And I'm not saying my parents have to know it for it to get popular, but I feel like, you know, you're trying to get broader with these big acquisitions. So I don't know. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, is Tomb Raider going to hit hard enough?
So first and foremost, I think you are outside of the core audience for both of those things, right? Warhammer and Tomb Raider. Number one, they're also not acquiring them, just so anyone knows. They are licensing these. So Tomb Raider's
that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, I know you know that. So I think by licensing Tomb Raider in the past 10 years has resurged with when Crystal Dynamics and which was owned by Square Enix made the newer games, like had this boom of like resurgence in like games because it became like a what's it, Uncharted. It's the Uncharted of I guess Tomb Raider already existed, so they just took the Uncharted motive and did things right with that stuff. So they have won tons of awards and really been at the forefront of a lot of good video games. Like when these are on sale or like people are giving them out for free, everyone's like, hell yeah, get on these. These Tomb Raider games are awesome. I would say the other thing is, a lot of these games, I would nix the original PlayStation ideas out of our head, right? Because we grew up with those, like where they were like, "Hey,
I want the old shuffling butler."
Yeah, yes, the old shuffling, the pointy boobs, right? Everyone remembers the pointy boobs and the short. Sorry, but like my wife loves the Tomb Raider games. Like, is this targeted at women who want to play games or like see a woman in the protagonist role of this? I would also lean into, because Amazon is also publishing the game with Crystal Dynamics, who made the other 3 games, right? So the next game will be published by Amazon. I don't know where that's going to go. If it's on I don't think it'll go on Luna, but you know what I'm saying, like it'll probably be everywhere, but have Amazon.
That's the most interesting bit, right? Of like, is this going to be the first time we've seen in earnest like a franchise kicked off with a game in mind for the story, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just kind of like, oh, we're just making a game in the spirit of it. Like, it seems like, oh, if you want more to this story, more to this world, play this game. I think that's cool, but I think that's going to be incredibly hard to do. If there's anything that we know growing up with the modern video game industry, due dates get pushed all of the time. So like, it will probably be on like season 3 of one of these shows before we see the game pop out.
So this game was started work. It was announced in 2021. I had to look that because I'm like, I know that someone was working on one when Crystal Dynamics mentioned it. So they've been working on it since 2021. So I think my guess is, and my theory is going to be that the game might be a prequel for the show, right? Like, hey, here's some history. We don't have to go into an origin story in the TV show. We can just pick up, she is a Tomb Raider, and we don't have to hear about where she started and all that fun stuff. Kind of like the Angelina Jolie movies did, right? They just picked up, she was already a Tomb Raider. We didn't have to go back in time to have a whole movie based on that. But the idea, the biggest thing that people said, the reason this caught even news, Mike, I think, is because you said to me, we want this to be the MCU for Tomb Raider. And I think, both of our reactions were, there's only one character. How can you have a connected cinematic universe when it's one character?
This was the vibe back in like 2010, right? In the 2010s, where every new app was like, we're the Uber of food. We are the Uber of energy drinks. We are the Uber of like bathroom rugs. And you're just like, wait, what? So I think that's kind of what is happening here, right? It's not really the Uber of anything. It's not really the MCU of anything, but they're just trying to get the vibe out there. Like, we're trying to make some interconnected stuff. So we're just going to throw the word MCU out there just to get some buzz.
and we joke like, are the guns getting their own game? Like, this is the history of Lara Croft's guns, and they're the star of the show. But or the game, but like, it's if they can pull off a TV series, a movie, and a video game that tie together, I will be thoroughly impressed, right? Like, I will be 100% impressed that they could do that, simply because A, you mentioned timeline slipping, but B, like, just the amount of how much story can you get out of Lara Croft's life and what she's doing. She's kind of like, again, she was always like an Indiana Jones, right? This, Uncharted has done that with their games. I think there's opportunity. But, to me, the timing of this announcement kind of felt like they were trying to do The Last of Us, right? Like, hey, this video game had a really good show, launch for episode 1 and 2, which is also renewed for season 2, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. We're going to do the same thing over at Amazon. We're taking your good news from The Last of Us and making our own announcement about our Tomb Raider deal. We're doing over here.
I'm doing this bizarre thing right now where I just, typed in Tomb Raider into Google Images, right, just to kind of refresh my brain, and then I started going Tomb Raider 1, Tomb Raider 2, Tomb Raider 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just to see the evolution of like the graphics and her face. And it's so funny because as the graphical fidelity has improved over the ages of Lara Croft, they didn't really try to make her face look more human. They just tried to polish what they created like back in the early PSX days. So like you get to like Tomb Raider 5 and they're like rendering her like mouth really far down her face, and like she's got these big eyes. She looks like a weird cartoon character. So if you want to go through a weird trip, just follow the evolution of Lara Croft's face. It's so goofy.
What I'm going to do, I just texted you a link of all the Lara Croft from all the games photoshopped into one picture. And it's coming to you, including like the most recent Lara Croft and the first one, and like they're all sitting around the fountain at like that house that she has, the mansion level.
This is cool.
Yeah, so it's fun to see it, right? Like obviously the one up front is the first one. They've even rounded her off a little bit more than it used to be, but it's fun to see all the different variations, not realizing how many games there were.
Yeah, I'll wrap it up and just say the character and the story and the universe obviously has merit. I'm just like curious from like a strategic point of view, right? Yeah. Like, does Tomb Raider have the juice behind it that a gigantic organization like Amazon is looking for? Like Amazon, they buy Lord of the Rings, right? They go all out. So to me, like Tomb Raider almost seems like a like a kind of like a Netflixy acquisition,
And they may be trying to compete with Netflix things. I think anything they buy, they're going to have numbers behind it. And the Tomb Raider for the past 10 years has been regarded higher and in better quality. And I don't know about that movie. I don't have the numbers for the movie, but everything else, the games have been regarded higher quality than ever before. So I feel like there are numbers that they're proving behind that we just don't get to see, sadly, because we don't have an entertainment lawyer to call them up and figure this out. Maybe one day. Lastly, we're going to get into our last bit here. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves gave us another, I guess, a new trailer, right? And it kind of gives us the villain for this. And by reveals, it doesn't tell you who it is. You have to look it up. It's a necromantic lich from the Dungeons and Dragons lore. I looked up the names. I didn't know the name. Didn't care. But I'm kind of excited for this movie, Mike. I don't know about you. Like, it looks fun. It looks, there's a lot of, big name actors in here, right? The graphics look fun. I don't know. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if this is going to line up with it one for one, but I feel pretty okay about going to watch this, when it hits theaters in a couple months.
Two things I'm trying to track here. First one, positive, the humor. It looks funny. Like this just looks like one of those like action films that you walk out of and like, oh, that wasn't just like an action film. That was just like a really good comedy. So, and usually that's hard to translate, right, to a trailer. You kind of have to be in the movie to experience like the humor. You can't really always get it from the trailer. So it's like, well, they're doing a good job getting it across here. So that could be a good sign, right? Yeah. But I am getting a little worried that like all the trailers and promotions that I've seen for this movie just seems to be a Led Zeppelin music video. So I'm like, okay, is the soundtrack, is the music doing the lift here? Is it these memorable classic rock licks, channeling the part of my brain that goes, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be good. So we'll wait and see. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. And it could be, I think that song, like you mentioned, that's a +1 to, I guess, charisma. Anytime you put it in there, like look back to what Thor Ragnarok, right? Use that song several times in the movie. Very fun, very effective in the trailer. But like you mentioned, I think the humor is really coming over into this really well with the team coming to life for it. And honestly, like I said, it looks very Dungeons and Dragons-y. Like, I guess Lord of the Rings, right? Like this fantasy medieval world. They're really translating that well, and I applaud that. I've seen the older Dungeons and Dragons movies. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to watch those. They are awful. They will bore you to death. So absolutely thrilled to see something with some quality here. And so check out that trailer there. Let us know if you're gonna watch it. I didn't get the release date for that. I'll look it up later. We can pull it up next time. But so that's the show this week, Mike. That's what we're doing. What we're up to for this week. Where can people find you for the coming weeks whenever they follow you on your social media.
Yeah, if people want to follow me, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN. I tried Mastodon. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it, Mike. I'm trying,
no one does.
I am trying so hard. I still have my Twitter. I don't post anything on there. I use it for notifications for things I still have on there, but like that place is, I'm trying to get away from there as fast as possible, and Mastodon is not doing it for me yet, so I've got to figure this out pretty quick. But yeah, people know about the show, what we're doing. Come listen to us, next week or in 2 weeks when we cover the Super Bowl. We usually, I don't know if we'll do a before show or an after. We'll probably do an after show, right? We always usually do an after show. Where can they find all that good stuff at?
Well, as always, just visit superheroslate.com. That is the headquarters for everything we do here at Superhero Slate. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Reach out. What are you looking forward to this year? Hopefully James Gunn will give us that news drop next week and we can be talking about that. We want to know what you think about that too. That's going to be a fun bit to digest. So we also love our super fans. So if you're a super fan of the show, or if you want to be a super fan of the show, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.